I'm not the type of person who believes in ghosts or little green men or anything like that. I'm a data scientist. I believe in facts and what can be tested and proven. Some people enjoy working themselves up over those green-colored night vision ghost hunts and flashlight searches for Bigfoot. I don't. I've never been taken to flights of fancy, and humor isn't really my thing. You want stand-up comedy? Go to Netflix. You want facts and the cold hard truth? Come see me. So that's why this story is particularly disturbing to me. Even admitting it makes me feel foolish, but it's something I feel I have to get off my chest. My wildest hope is that someone will tell me that what I went through was just some bizarre hiccup of my mind, a momentary lapse in consciousness caused by something. Because if this really happened, this world is much more strange and dangerous than we could ever have imagined. So let me try to get this out and see if you can make sense of the visitor. I go to bed every night by 10 p.m. so I can be up by 6 a.m. to get ready for work. My ever-present companion, a 5-year-old black and tan dachshund named Nate, keeps the same schedule I do. He and I both climb into bed at the same time, me under the blankets and Nate at my feet, facing the door, always alert for the constant threat of squirrels or intruders. It was no different last night. I left my cell phone on its pad in the kitchen to recharge overnight. I changed into a white t-shirt and a pair of thin cotton shorts. I washed my face and brushed my teeth. Nate lapped up his final drink of water for the night from the bowl I kept just inside the master bedroom door. Turning off the light from the ensuite bathroom and closing the door, I then closed the curtains in the 3 large bedroom windows that sat against the far side of the room. During the day, they looked out onto a peaceful, wooded area just a few feet from the back of my house. Nate liked to go out and explore in the woods when the weather is nice, and I like not having any neighbors directly behind me. Our bedroom routine complete, I closed the bedroom door and pulled back the covers on the queen-sized bed against the wall in the middle of the room. On the right side of the bed sat a small bedside table and lamp near the wall of windows. On my side of the bed, the left, was another small table and lamp next to a long wall toward the bedroom door and a long squat dresser with a mirror. In the dim light of my bedside table lamp, I slid beneath the sheets onto the plush mattress. Nate used his little ramp at the foot of the bed to climb up onto the mattress with me. I pulled the covers around myself and turned onto my side, facing my nightstand. Nate turned around a few times, sniffing and scratching here and there at the covers until he had arranged them to his satisfaction, then plopped down and put his head on the mattress. "Good night, buddy," I said. Nate turned to look at me in the dim light. His long snoot let out a puffing sound and he laid his head back down. This was our normal routine. I switched off the bedside lamp and the room was plunged into nearly complete darkness. I could just barely hear the sounds of the nighttime insects beyond the window as I quickly drifted off to sleep. Around midnight, I awoke needing to relieve myself. The glass of wine I had with dinner was a nice treat, but I knew it would have me up at some point needing to go. Leaving the lights off, my eyes already adjusted to the darkness, I carefully slid out from beneath the sheets, careful not to disturb Nate, who was making quiet snoring sounds at the foot of the bed. I padded to the restroom, closed the door behind me, and relieved myself in the darkness, a small plug-in LED light casting the bathroom in a very dim blue glow, just enough to keep things sanitary. Half asleep, I walked slowly back to the bed and slipped back beneath the covers. I turned on my opposite side now, facing the curtains in the room. I could see the room only in shadows and silhouettes, and my body was already tugging me back to sleep. My eyes flew open as a silhouette passed in front of the curtains, quickly moving like someone in a hurry from the end of the room to the bathroom, all the way to the side of the bed. It seemed like whatever it was must have been about 3 feet tall and was standing at the opposite side of my bed. My heart racing, I shot upright in bed and turned toward my side table, flicking on the lamp. I turned back toward the windows. There was nothing there. I could hear my breath, short and fast, and I sat looking around the room in the dim light from the lamp. I looked at Nate. He was curled up, asleep. That's strange. If so much as a leaf falls against the window at night, Nate has been known to jump to full attention, barking in fury at the would-be intruder. I guess I had dreamed it. It is a well-known phenomenon, after all. Hypnagogic hallucinations are just harmless meanderings of your mind as it tries to move from wakefulness to sleep. I had never really experienced it before, but about 1 in 3 people do at some point in their lives, so why not me? As my heart settled down into a more reasonable rhythm, I had to admit that this was looking more and more like a simple case of a sleepy brain trying to go back to dreamland too quickly. I switched off the lamp and turned back over to face the windows. No silhouettes, no strange shadows. It took a few minutes, but I slowly fell back asleep. I was jolted awake by the sound of Nate barking furiously. He was barking and whimpering at the same time, like he does when he trees a squirrel or chases a possum in the backyard. "What is it, buddy?" I asked. I raised up from my pillow and could see that Nate was at the other end of the bed, at full attention. His black tail was still and straight up in the air. One paw was raised in a pointer position. His eyes never left the curtains on the wall. He strained to see, then flipped on the bedside lamp. Nate looked back at me, then back at the curtains. He had stopped barking, but was still making that whimpering, anxious sound. There wasn't anything there. I looked around the room. Nothing seemed out of place. A very short flash of light came from behind one of the curtain panels. Lightning. I sighed. "Oh, Nate," I said. "Come here." Nate continued to whine, looking toward the window. "Nate, buddy, it's just lightning. Nothing to be worried about." Nate looked at me and cocked his head to the side, as if seriously considering what I had said. "Come here, buddy," I said soothingly. Nate slowly lowered his paw and began to walk toward me, his tail between his legs. I scooped him up into my arms and gently smoothed his long, floppy ears. "It's okay, Nate," I said, holding him close to me. "It's okay, buddy." Another flash of light in my periphery as I rocked back and forth with my long companion. I looked over at the alarm clock on my table. 1:30 a.m. I really needed to get back to sleep if I wanted any chance of being on my game tomorrow at work. I reached over and switched off the lamp. I pulled up the covers and let Nate step down to nestle under the blankets beside me. His body curled tightly as it pressed against me. He instantly quieted down, and so did I. Within minutes, we were both asleep again. My eyes flew open. My heart was beating wildly. An extremely bright flash of light lit up the dark bedroom, followed quickly by a horrendous crash of thunder. Nate yelped. His entire body was shaking under the covers next to me. This was going to be a long night. I reached over to turn the bedside lamp on. Nothing happened. The alarm clock was dark as well. "Crap," I said out loud. The electricity was out. Another flash of light and roar of thunder. Rain was hitting against the window hard, being driven by a summer thunderstorm's fury of wind. Nate clawed his way into my arms and onto my chest. I grabbed him and held him tightly against me. "It's all right, buddy," I said, rocking him gently. "It's all right." Nate whimpered against me, shaking. I held him tightly, using one hand to smooth his fur and his long ears. "Shh," I said soothingly. In the pitch dark, with the rain beating against the window, I tried to force myself to go back to sleep. I'd never be able to get up in the morning if I didn't get at least some rest. I looked toward the curtains on the wall, waiting for the next lightning and thunder display. Within seconds, the lightning flashed again, an extended pulsing of light. My breath caught in my throat. Behind the curtain closest to the bed, the lightning revealed a silhouette, a 3 or 4 foot tall creature, humanoid almost, but with something protruding from both sides of its back. It seemed to have long, straight, pointy ears, or maybe horns, and a pointy head, like an upside-down triangle. Its arms seemed too long for a person, its head slightly too big for its body. It seemed like it was trying to move out from behind the curtain. Thunder crashed as the lightning faded. I thought I saw the curtain move slightly. What the hell was that? I thought. Nate didn't seem to notice. He simply kept shivering against me. The lightning flashed again. The silhouette was gone. I glanced around the room. Nothing. Another peal of thunder, this time a bit more quiet. The rain droned on. I held Nate against me and rocked him slowly. He was calming down. So was the storm. I tried to convince myself that what I saw was simply a trick of the light, shadows cast by lightning and swaying trees outside my window. I didn't believe it. Not really. But what else was I supposed to think? I'm a rational man. Little creatures don't appear and disappear in my house at night, let alone anyone else's. Lightning flashed again. I screamed out. In the brief flash, I saw long, dirty-looking claws attached to leathery hands grabbing onto the side of the bed furthest from me. It looked like something was trying to pull itself up. Nate, hearing my scream, jumped out of my arms and began to bark again, looking left and right, trying to determine what I had seen. Lightning flashed again. Nothing was there. No claws. No hands. That had to be just a trick of the light, I thought. I'm letting my anxiety get the best of me. Nate ran toward the side of the bed, barking, looking at the curtains again. Nate, it's okay, I said. I crawled toward him on the bed, finally coming parallel to him. I reached out and began petting him to calm him down, my chest against the mattress, my head inches from the edge of the bed where the claws had just been. Shh, I said. Shh. Nate stopped barking and began licking my hand. I ruffled his ears in my hand and told him that he was a good boy. His tail began to wag lazily from side to side. I continued to stare at the lip of the bed. What if... No. I obviously saw nothing. I'm not crazy. There's a logical reason for tonight, and my panic has just been adding to it. Still, I couldn't help myself. On my chest, I pulled myself slowly toward the edge of the bed, inching forward as quietly as possible, my eyes locked on the bed, looking downward as I moved. As my eyes came over the side of the bed, my body tensed up. I unconsciously held my breath, my hands clamped into fists. With one final push, I let my eyes see over the side of the bed, directly where I had seen the claws just a moment before. I gasped. Nothing. Nothing there at all. What about under the bed? I thought. Nope, this is ridiculous, I said out loud. It's extremely late, and I'm working myself up over shadows and noises of a damn rainstorm. I need to just man up and get myself back to sleep. My hands trembling, I pushed myself up from the mattress and sat back against the pillows on my side of the bed. Nate padded over to me and began to climb onto me, trying to put himself in my arms like he would do when he was frightened as a puppy. I cradled him in my arms, my breath ragged as he snuggled against me, and I shushed him, rocking him slowly. Grabbing onto science as if it were a life raft in a tumultuous sea, I let logic settle my nerves as I sunk back into my pillows. Nate eventually fell asleep in my arms, and I carefully set him next to me on the bed, before allowing myself to drift back off to sleep again, with the promise of a new, logical day on the horizon. Nate's shrill barking brought me out of a deep sleep. I had been dreaming of lurking shadows, creeping things that were following me wherever I went. I slowly opened my eyes. I could sense that Nate was somewhere near my feet, barking like a mad dog. Nate, I said groggily. Buddy, it's just the rain. I sat up slowly on my elbows. Nate was at the foot of the bed. I expected him to be barking toward the curtains, upset by the continuing rain. Instead, he was looking across the room, near the corner, at the master bedroom door. I pushed myself up a little higher as my eyes tried to focus from their slumber. All right, Nate, I said. Calm down. The electricity was still out. I peered into the darkness by the bedroom door. At first, I didn't see anything at all. Holy shit! I screamed out. In the corner near the bedroom door was some thing, something dark and short and wide. It could have easily passed for a shadow or the silhouette of furniture in the room, but furniture doesn't have red, glowing eyes. The thing let out a horrifying sound that reminded me of a growl and a hiss and a swarm of bees all at the same time. The hair on my arm stood on end. Nate continued to bark. He was moving closer to the end of the bed, defending his master and his home. If there's one thing dachshunds are known for, it's their fierce loyalty and territorial nature. Plus, they all seem to think they're about 10 times larger than they really are. The thing sounded angrier. "Nate!" I called out, trying to sound commanding. I began to run through possible animals in my mind that may have escaped from the wild and made its way into my house. There has to be a logical explanation for this. Nate looked back at me, his brown eyes glistening, whimpering with indecision. "No, Nate," I said. Nate turned back toward the thing in the corner of the room, quiet now, turning his triangular black and brown head as he studied the thing. Nate exploded in barking. He ran toward the top of his bed ramp. "Nate!" I screamed. "No, Nate!" Nate ran down the bed ramp, his nails clicking quickly down the ramp. I jumped up and threw the covers off of myself. The creature moved forward suddenly, decisively. It seemed to get somehow wider and larger suddenly. I heard what sounded like the unfurling of large flags in the wind. I smelled a hideous, sulfurous smell. I reached the floor and ran toward Nate as the creature moved quickly and bent toward the little dachshund. "No!" I screamed, running toward my furry buddy, still barking furiously, holding his ground. I saw talons or claws or something as they uncurled from a fist-like shape and reached quickly for my dog. Just in time, I grabbed Nate by the scruff of the neck, pulling him toward me. The creature grabbed out. Nate yelped in pain. "Get back!" I screamed at the creature. It straightened up and stared at me. Its eyes were definitely a glowing, deep red. What I could see of it was absolutely hideous. Holding Nate tightly against my chest, I reached with my free arm over to my dresser where a large bottle of cologne sat, my daily fragrance. I threw it as hard as I could at the creature, striking hard somewhere near what I think was its distorted-looking face. The creature backed away as I did the same. I backed into the corner of the bedroom near my nightstand. It ran toward the opposite side of my bed, a dark, hideous, silhouetted mass of shadows moving quickly toward the drapes. It suddenly dropped out of sight below the line of the bed. All was suddenly quiet except for the gentle sound of light rain outside the windows. Nate was trembling in my arms. He whimpered slightly. I looked down at my little buddy. I stroked his fur softly. I felt a small streak of something slick and sticky. Blood. The creature must have caught Nate with his claw just as I picked him up. "It's okay, buddy," I said, pressing my hand firmly over the small wound. It seemed like just a scratch, but I applied pressure anyway. Nate whimpered slightly and tried to curl up toward me in my arms. All right, I said to Nate, keeping my eyes on the place where that creature had disappeared a moment ago. It was completely dark and completely quiet now. With the creature having retreated to the opposite side of the room, farthest away from the bedroom door, my immediate thought was to get the hell out of there, grab my phone, and call for the police. I ran toward the door with Nate held close against me. I threw open the bedroom door and quickly closed it behind me. The creature almost immediately slammed into the door as it let out another strange, angry sound, muffled by the door between us. I ran toward the kitchen in the dark. I set Nate down on the floor. He whimpered slightly but stayed alert, growling low back toward the bedroom. I reached for my phone that had been charging on the counter. It was gone. What the hell? The door to the bedroom opened and closed with a bang. That thing could open doors? I heard that leathery flapping sound again and some sort of scratching noise, like it was scratching up my walls. Nate began to growl and bark again, backing up against me and looking toward the hallway leading to the bedroom. I scooped him up along with my car keys, which were thankfully still on the counter in the kitchen. I made a run for it into the hallway that both led to the master bedroom and to the front door. I flinched as I turned in the hallway, half expecting that the creature and its sharp, hideous claws would be there waiting for me. Nothing. I stopped running. There was nothing in the short hallway at all. Nothing in the small dining room across from the kitchen. I could smell its sulfurous stink. Where had it gone? Nate was growling low again, struggling to get free from my arms. "Stop, Nate," I commanded. He whimpered but stopped struggling. Barefoot, and nothing more than a t-shirt and shorts, I inched forward toward the door. I didn't like this. Something about this felt like a trap. I moved slowly, 1 foot at a time, toward the front door. Although it was probably less than 20 feet from where I stood to the door, it seemed like the hallway stretched forever out in front of me. I didn't know where that thing went. Maybe it went back in the bedroom, I thought. I put Nate on the floor next to my feet, and he sniffed the air, staying silent, his tail pointing nearly straight up and wagging in a tight back-and-forth motion. I moved forward quietly and peered into the living room at the front of the house, the first room beside the front door. It appeared to be empty. I looked across the hall where the door to the guest bedroom was closed, as it usually was. No one seemed to be up here. That thing may have, in fact, retreated to the bedroom, although I could still smell its stench as if it were right in front of my face. I took another step toward the front door. Pain seared through my right foot. "Fuck!" I said through clenched teeth. I looked down. The broken remnants of my phone lay in a pile of shards on the floor. It looked like something heavy had crushed it underfoot. "Jesus!" I said. I leaned against the wall in the hallway and pulled my injured foot toward myself. Gingerly, I ran a hand over the sole of my foot. "Ugh!" I grunted as my hand hit a piece of glass that had embedded itself in my foot. Through clenched teeth, I grabbed it and yanked it out. Thankfully, it hadn't gone too deep. I gently brushed at the remainder of my foot. Surprisingly, apart from the blood that had started to flow from my wound, the rest of my skin was intact. I brushed off some plastic debris and stood upright again, wincing slightly from the open wound on my foot. I looked back toward the bedroom door. I looked at the front door, now just barely out of reach in front of me. Everything was dead quiet. Even the rain had stopped. Nate stood still next to me, gently licking the side of my foot that had been injured. "Come on, Nate," I said quietly, and I began walking, with a slight limp now, toward the front door. Nate looked up as we approached the door. He suddenly froze and yelped. The creature dropped suddenly from the ceiling down to the floor directly in front of the door. I let out a scream. This was definitely not any animal I had ever seen before, but a monstrous creature that looked like it had been formed in some demented scientist's lab. From a height of about 4 feet, it suddenly extended itself upward, stretching itself to nearly 6 feet tall. The creature looked like something straight out of a nightmare. A gnarled, leathery, hairless, bony body seemed to contort in all the wrong angles to keep the creature upright. A pointed face led down past a bony protrusion that must have been some sort of nose. Mucus seemed to be dripping slowly down its face. Its mouth was a large, gaping mass of sharp, pointed teeth, some of which seemed to move like fangs. Large, bony horns protruded from the top of its skull, beneath which large, glowing red orbs served as eyes. Muscular, overly long arms with hooked talons in the place of fingers hung from its frame as wide, leathery, veiny wings extended to block the entire hallway. Nate began to bark furiously, immediately putting himself between me and the creature, trying to protect me. "Nate, no!" I screamed out. I bent down to grab my brave little buddy from the floor. Before I could, the creature moved faster than I would have imagined possible. In one sweeping move, the creature bent down slightly and, with one long, muscular arm, it swept Nate from the floor, throwing him into the dark living room to my right. I heard a thump and a yelp. "Nate!" No reply. My anger grew larger than my fear. I stepped forward and pushed the creature as hard as I could. It stumbled backward, but only momentarily before catching its footing. The creature swiped at me with its long talons. I jumped backwards, adrenaline pumping through my veins, my heart audible in my own ears. I needed to get to Nate. He could be seriously hurt. The creature stepped forward, blocking my way into the living room. "No!" I shouted, standing as tall as possible, trying to get the creature to back off. "Get out of here! Go!" The hideous thing ignored my command and moved forward quickly, its wings beating slightly. I could smell a putrid, sulphurous wind against my face. A searing hot pain tore across my arm and part of my chest. I screamed, dropping the car keys that were in my hand. They skittered off behind me. The monster had in one lightning move advanced on me and tore at me with its claws, striking me in the left arm and across my chest, ripping my shirt. I could feel the warmth of my blood trickling down my arm and chest. It struck at me again, lightning fast, but I had anticipated it and leaned backward, knocking myself off balance. I fell, gracelessly, to the floor. The creature bent down and quickly approached, intending to finish me off, I guess. I began to crab walk backward on the floor. Not fast enough. It reached its arm up to strike again. Nate suddenly barked from behind the creature. The creature let out an angry growl. From my vantage point, I could see Nate had bitten it hard on the leg. My little brave dachshund shook his head defiantly, sinking his teeth in deeper. The monster's attention turned away from me and I stumbled backward again. It shook its leg violently, Nate growling fiercely. Finally, the creature swung its leg against the closest wall, causing Nate to hit the wall with a thud. Nate, with a yelp of pain, finally let go. Not missing a beat, he immediately started barking. Little black and tan soldier, I thought. The creature advanced on me again. I tried to push myself up from the floor, but something caught under my palm. The key fob to my car. The pain of the small plastic device pressing deep into my skin was nearly unnoticeable in the commotion. A siren began to go off suddenly. A loud on and off wailing pierced the air. The living room began to pulse on and off with bright white light. The creature brought up its arms as if trying to shield whatever orifice in its head stood for ears. It made a sound as if it were in wretched pain. Nate began to howl at the sound. Apparently, the frequency of the noise hurt his sensitive ears too. I realized what the sound was. I had accidentally depressed the panic button on my car's key fob and set off the flashing headlights and siren sound. My car was parked just feet away from us in the driveway next to the front door. The creature roared again. I could see its sinewy, ugly muscles twitch violently as it began to shrink itself back down to its smaller stature, only 3 or 4 feet tall. Its wings folded inward. It looked like a little goblin screaming in my hallway. Nate was still howling at the noise, but I dared not stop it. The creature took off running past me and into the kitchen. Like an idiot, I followed it. It turned back to look at me and saw me approaching. It seemed to be afraid of me suddenly. The creature got to the back door of my kitchen and dropped down to its claws and knees. With little effort, it squeezed through the large dog door that had already been installed when I bought the house. It was big enough for a golden retriever, but Nate was perfectly okay to use it, so I never bothered to change it. As the large flap opened and closed, I could hear the sound of the siren raise and lower in volume. I ran toward the back door and threw it open. I could hear the sound of Nate's tiny claws clicking on the tile as he ran toward me. In the dark of night, I could hear the sound of my car's alarm system piercing the air even sharper as I searched my backyard for any sign of the beast. Not too far away, I got one final glimpse of the thing as it unfurled its beastly, leathery wings again, and with 4 strong flaps, raised into the air and flew off into the night toward the woods that sat behind my house. Neighborhood dogs were barking and howling at this point, and Nate had joined in, standing next to me in the dewy wet grass outside. I watched until I could no longer see the mysterious thing. It continued to fly further and further away. At no point did it turn back. Finally, I turned back toward the house. "Come on, Nate," I said. "Let's get inside." After picking up the fob from the floor in the hallway and stopping the panic sirens on my car, I immediately went back to the kitchen and locked and bolted the back door. I pushed the heaviest items I could find against the dog door until I had time tomorrow to replace the door completely. Nate would just have to relearn how to scratch the door frame to let me know he wants to go out. It would also prevent anything else from getting in. Nate and I finally did get some much-needed sleep a little while later. Dawn was already approaching. We slept huddled together on the couch, my hands wrapped sturdily around the key fob to my car. And that brings us to now. Nate's vet said he only suffered minor scratches and bruises and would be fine soon. The cuts on my foot, arm, and chest from the broken phone and talons had some antiseptic and small bandages applied. I picked up a replacement phone on the way back from the doctor. Everything is back to normal. Today seems like any other day. Except, what was that? Has anyone else ever come across this thing? Does anyone have a logical explanation for what I saw? My doctor said it may have been a small bear. They're sometimes seen in these parts. That wasn't a bear, though. I know, logically, that there are still creatures great and small that we haven't yet discovered or given a name to. Maybe I had come across that. I can't accept that whatever this thing was, that it was from somewhere outside of the bounds of our logical, scientific world, from beyond this dimension. There had to be a rational explanation for my late-night visitor, right? Anyway, if you see something late at night, in the shadows of your dark bedroom, don't dismiss it as just a trick of the light or your groggy mind. You might just have a visitor of your own.